Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of the Overtime Podcast with Sparksy and Jared. I'm Mike Sparks, and glad to have you aboard on this fifth episode of the podcast. And my tag team partner, Jared Moore, is with us. Jared, how are you today, man?
Great, just enjoying the rain, on this nice spring day. So rather be doing other things, obviously, outside, but it's great to be here today, and I'm glad we can have Jacob on.
Yeah, I think I saw Noah pass by today in his ark. It's been raining so much, but we'll get to warmer weather soon. And thanks for that great transition. We're going to be speaking today with an outstanding athlete, a 2008 graduate, Plymouth High School, who earned 7 letters in his time in basketball and in baseball as well. Went on to college at Ohio State University, looking to be a journalist, and has now become an award-winning journalist with the Mansfield News Journal. So welcome to the podcast today, Jake Furr. How you doing?
I'm about as good as I can be right now. I just got word our golf league got canceled for tomorrow because of this rain. So,
oh no,
just a little bum, but hey, what can you do about it?
Yeah, the one game that you can play with social distancing, and you can't go out and play it.
Exactly. You got to have some rowboats to get out there and find your ball.
Very good. Well, so I mentioned 2008 graduate of Plymouth High School, and 3-year letter winner in basketball, 4-year letter winner in baseball, an accomplished athlete. And you go on to Ohio State and graduate there in 2013 with an English major, and really, as you and I spoke, wanted to get into journalism, and we're doing a little bit of freelance work until you got your first big break in the spring of 2015, and you show up at the Bucyrus Telegraph Forum, and it kind of took off from there. And we can talk at some point about the career, but really, I want to start to reflect on about 9 months ago right now, and we're in the middle of August 2019. You as a sports writer, high school sports is so big in this area. It's big to your readers at the Mansfield News Journal. It's big to community. It's big to school. You're getting revved up for cross country, for soccer, for volleyball, and of course for football, everybody's love. And as you go through the fall season, you look at a Caleb Brown from Shelby that's a state champ in cross country. You have Gallion that goes as regional semifinals and lost to Ottawa Glandorf, and Monroeville, one of your old Firelands Conference foes, makes it to the state semifinal in volleyball before falling to New Bremen. You look at soccer, the Lady Rams of Madison go on to the state final before falling, and the Lexington boys get to the state semifinal. And of course, who can forget football? You're down in Tom Benson Stadium in December on the grounds of the Hall of Fame, not seeing one and covering one high school championship game, but two. The Mansfield TY Tigers fall to Trotwood Madison in overtime. And then, of course, the great story with the Lucas Cubs making it all the way to the state final before falling to perennial state champion Maria Stein Marion Local. Kind of reflect on all of that and what it was like covering fall sports in North Central Ohio.
Oh man, I mean, it was an absolute whirlwind. I mean, you go from, I covered a state championship in cross country, and with the Lexington girls winning it as a team, and then Caleb Brown coming back and winning that as an individual from Shelby, and it just kind of started everything, because then I had soccer teams that went on a run, I had football teams that were continuing to go on runs. And it was just a crazy month. I mean, I think it all happened within a month's time. I mean, it's like everybody always asks me, what's the highlight of your sports writing career? I mean, it's like, it sounds obvious, but it was like just this past fall. I mean, I have so many good memories, but I mean, that was, that was almost a once in a lifetime. I hope it's not once in a lifetime, but it was a once in a lifetime kind of fall where I had just so many teams that were so successful and just went on some amazing runs. Like you said, the Lucas football team, man, that was one of the funnest, runs that I've ever been a part of. They drew up a play in the dirt in the state semifinal and win it with the pass play. And I don't think they run maybe 50 pass plays a year. So
right.
And then Mansfield Senior, going to the state final and overcoming just so much. Maybe 2 overtime games before that in the playoffs, and then go into overtime against Trotwood Madison, have a really good chance to win that game. They struck first with I think it was a 90+ yard touchdown run. Those are just some memories that I'm never going to forget. But the one memory that I don't think I'm going to ever forget, and it's soccer with the Madison Lady Rams. Soccer. I don't know anything about soccer still to this day. But that's how you play soccer, is how those girls play the game. I thoroughly enjoyed every single bit of that run, even the Lexington boys making it to the Final Four. I mean, it was an amazing fall, and I hope we get to run through that again this year.
So you go through that fall and you have such a great season, and then we go into basketball even, and Lucas continues that kind of magical sports year where they're heading into late into the tournament and one win away from a state tournament. And take us through that as well. I mean, such a magical season for Lucas this year.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that was I always say once in a lifetime, but man, that was just an incredible year for them. I remember covering their very first game of the year after they got done playing football. I think it was like almost a week and a half after their state championship game. They come back and play at Mansfield St. Pete's. And you could just tell that they just didn't have their basketball legs under them. And it took them a little while to get it, but once they did, man, they went on a run like crazy. And then they, like a flu bug or something, maybe it was this whole coronavirus, kind of hit them early, like in January, I think. They ended up losing one game. I think it was like Norway. And they didn't have their entire team. I remember talking to Coach Eisman, and he said that at halftime, 3 players went into the locker room and actually took a nap during halftime. They didn't have their second leading scorer. They had their leading scorer that game, and I think they only lost by, it was less than double digits. So, but yeah, then following them into the regional tournament, they beat that McDonald team, and then they came back. Then they had a huge task with Richmond Heights, but they didn't get a chance. That's the one thing I think they'll always think about is we didn't get a chance to do what we wanted to do. But regardless, man, they set multiple records, most wins in school history in a single season, most wins in a regular season, tied the mark for the longest tournament run. So they have everything to be proud of over there. And it was, I love that area because when I was 8, I played travel baseball for the Johnny Appleseed Baseball Club, and our home field was the Lucas softball field right there beside the school. So I have a ton of friends down there, and like all the parents from that team, I still talk to this day. So the Lucas is a very special place to me.
Yeah, and you're right. They did have a very special season, but we can't forget other teams as well. You look at, we just interviewed Natalie Lance a couple weeks ago, and what their Lady Whippets did in the season that they had, and unfortunately fell a little earlier than they would have liked against Willard. And then from the boys' standpoint, Colonel Crawford finally getting over the hump of the district championship and moving on to Bowling Green, and fell to a very good Ottawa Glandorf team. But then you look at Upper Sandusky, who was sitting there waiting to play their regional semifinal when the plug got pulled. And you mentioned Lucas, one win away, one opportunity away from going to state. Talk us through what that was like as a sports journalist when everything came to a screeching halt, and then the uncertainty of knowing what was going to happen with spring and eventually the demise of spring sports.
Like everybody else, I was just kind of in wait and see mode, but I was trying to gather that information ahead of time. I was trying to gather that information before anybody else to kind of let the public know and try to be in the loop and that was really tough to do, because everybody was really tight-lipped about everything. You know, the OHSA wanted to communicate with their schools before they communicated with the media, which is understandable. You know, you never want to learn something off of, you know, like social media, that maybe your season got canceled. You want to hear that from a coach or from, you know, some kind of authority. But you know, you're just sitting there waiting. And I remember when it all first started, and I saw the Ivy League cancel their tournament, their basketball tournament. And I was like, man, I feel like this is a huge overreaction. Just at that time, that's what I thought. You know, I remember seeing that on social media, and I was like, man, just stop, like pump the brakes a little bit. Let's see what we can do here first. And then, you know, then all the other tournaments started canceling, and March Madness, which is my all-time favorite sporting event, got canceled. And I was like, okay, you know, there's absolutely no way that we're going to have a high school, you know, finish out this high school season. So then you just start planning on, you know, trying to kind of honor those kids. And then, you know, you always hold out hope. I was holding out hope for spring, just because I know it's outdoors. You know, baseball and softball, they don't have a, you know, a ton of fans in the stands. You know, it's you know, non-revenue kind of sport, so it's, you know, there's not a whole lot of people around. So I was like, okay, maybe there's a way we can play this. And then, you know, you start learning a lot more about what's going on, and you're like, okay, you know, it's not as important as what we think. But, you know, you're always you were holding out hope. And, you know, I had plans, if it did get canceled, I had plans to kind of honor some athletes. And, you know, I'm just waiting. I was waiting and waiting to write those stories, and, you know, and I'm trying to fill the pages with other stuff until then. And, you know, once I did get word, I kind of wrote some features on some very deserving athletes. And, you know, it was a tough time, because, you know, that's something I've never went through. And, you know, as a former athlete, I was sitting there thinking, okay, what would have happened if my season would have got canceled, and how would I have reacted? And I wouldn't have been able to react the way some of the kids that I've talked to have reacted. And kind of the maturity that they showed was very, very impressive.
Yeah, and we go from that, and obviously we have the loss of spring sports, and then now looking forward to fall. I mean, what have you heard? What have you thought about on how this can go and how this can actually happen this fall?
I know there are a ton of plans in place. I don't know the details of those plans, but, you know, the OHSA, they seem to have a plan for just about anything. You know, an eight game season, or, you know, even a half a season for football and all the other fall sports. You know, trying to distance fans or limit the number of fans that are going to be in the stands, or, you know, there's a lot of things in place. And I think we're going to have a season. That's just personally, I believe we'll have a football season, because right now things are starting to open up, and, you know, we're going to see a lot of different things. And we're you know, three months away from a start of a football season. So there's a lot of things that can change in 3 months, and I hope it's a lot of positive things. But, you know, I could see the possibility of limiting the number of fans and making each fan sit so far apart. You know, and there's a lot of, like in stadiums around here, there's a lot of standing room around the end zones and all around the track and stuff. So I think there's a way we can have a full football season. There's a way we can have a full volleyball season, cross country, and cross country is kind of tough because you know, a lot of people are running in packs and there's a lot of fans. So, you know, there's just so many things to look at, and, you know, luckily we have 3 months to look at that stuff and get something planned out right.
We're visiting on this podcast series with award-winning news journalist, sports journalist with Mansfield News Journal, Jake Furr. And Jake, I when we did our little preview, this is a question that I didn't say that, you know, we may discuss, but so we're going to do it off the cuff. But, you know, back in the day, even when you were in high school leagues, the teams and the schools within those leagues really stayed put. Now all we see is league jumping, and you look at a Crestline from a football standpoint that went to the BVC, and they basically said thanks but no thanks, and and Crestline will be moving on after this season to the Northwest Central Conference. We learn of the Ohio Cardinal Conference of New Philadelphia coming in, which seems like an odd choice to me. And then recently we see Leipzig going on to the Northwest Conference, albeit that's in Western Ohio. And then the most recent one with the Mid-Buckeye, Loudonville, announcing that they're going to be going to the KMAC, right, for football, correct?
Yeah, it's going to be for football and for wrestling.
And
then all the other sports are being considered right now. But yeah, and Lucas, I was talking to Lucas's AD, and they applied for the KMAC because they are absolutely desperate for a conference right now because they're in an independent football schedule, and trying to schedule 10 games in an independent, trying to find those week 5 through 10 games is nearly impossible. And they're traveling all the way. I think last year they almost went down to Cincinnati for a regular season game. But I guess they got passed over. I think from what I'm hearing, it was because the KMAC didn't think that Lucas had enough JV sports. And they wanted to have those JV sports for everybody in the league. So Loudonville ends up going over there for football and wrestling. It doesn't make sense to me for any school, I don't care who it is, to be in a conference, in one conference for one sport and then another conference for other sports. It just, I don't know, that's just kind of weird to me. But like everybody's been saying, football runs everything, whether we like it or not. I don't particularly care for that argument, but what are you going to do? I don't put leagues together. If I did, things would look a lot different. I wrote a column.
I love that column, by the way.
Yeah, I wrote a column when New Philadelphia came into the OCC, and I'm like, man, we gotta change things. It just, I don't feel the rivalries anymore in conference play. The Firelands Conference is the golden standard right now.
Right.
It used to be the NOL, but the Firelands hasn't changed since the early 80s, I believe. So it's every game you have a storied rivalry in that conference. And I don't feel that with any other conference. You have like the OCC, you're going to play, like Lexington, Mansfield Senior, and Madison and Ashland are going to play each other. But and those are rivals, but then you're going to play New Philadelphia where you just have none of the kids know each other. None of the parents know each other. Not a whole lot of parents are going to be traveling to games, or fans are not a whole lot of fans are going to be traveling to games, almost 2 hours away. So it's, it's kind of, it is what it is. And the MOAC, I feel like the MOAC is getting to that now by bringing Highland in. They have kind of a storied rival with a lot of these schools. So it's, that's the MOAC is getting to that point. But, I would love to see, like Lex and Madison and Mansfield Senior and Ashland join into the MOAC and play the likes of Ontario and Shelby and Clear Fork. I would love to see that, but, I don't make those decisions.
That's right.
So you did the senior spotlights and whatnot. What else is in the works from you as far as a writing standpoint here over the next few months while we're sportsless, basically?
Right now, I'm actually working on two pretty huge projects. I'm doing a thing called the Richland 200, where I take 200 athletes from Richland County and just kind of say, hey, here's who you want to keep an eye out in 2020, 2021. And I'm about 45 athletes deep into that right now. I'm publishing those, so that's going to last all through the summer, and then the week before football practice starts, I'm going to do a 5-part series of the top 5 athletes that are coming back and kind of doing feature stories on them. Then I also have a top 25 teams that are going to be returning next year, and ranking the 200 is kind of easy because it's like, from 50 to 200, you can kind of mix match in those, and then you have your obvious top 50. But the top 25 teams, man, I didn't expect it to be so difficult to place those, because I have state champions, I have state runner-ups, I have district champions, I have Final Four, state semifinalists. And it's like the top 12 are just it's so tough to place those teams. But, those are the things I kind of enjoy, kind of give people a spotlight into the next what's coming next year. And it should be a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to write. I hope it's a lot of fun to read. But I have that coming. I just finished up a series of columns on The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary. I have a summer reading list that I'm going to come out with because during quarantine, that month where we couldn't really go anywhere, do anything, I read a lot of books, a lot of sports books. So that's coming. I just have a lot of different things that I'm trying to work on to, try to make a little bit more fun while we don't have any sports.
Speaking of which, those that know you know that you're probably one of the biggest Cleveland Indians fans that's walking the face of the earth. How tough has this been to you or for you with the spring without the Indians? And what do you see not only for them, but Major League Baseball? Do you see it coming back?
It's been a tough spring because, usually you hang out at night and you can just flip on the television and you see a baseball game. I mean, just baseball in general, not even just Indians, but baseball in general. I just miss it. And, a lot of people are like, well, you can tune into like the Korean league at like 3 a.m. if you want to. I'm not up that late. So, but yeah, it's been tough to just not have baseball because baseball is one of my favorite sports. But I really hope we do see a season coming back. The things that I've been reading and the way that some of the players have been reacting, I'm not very confident right now. I would like to just have something. I don't care what it is. You can play it in one stadium and put all the players up in dorms and do whatever you have to do to play games. But man, I don't know. It seems like a very large uphill battle, and I'm not very confident. But I want it. I want it bad.
Yeah, as do I.
Yeah, and I guess speaking of baseball and everything, we go from possibly not having a season, means one more year without Lindor. Is there any way in your mind that the Indians re-sign Francisco Lindor?
I mean, everything from the past tells me no. I hope this is kind of the one exception because I think he is one of the greats, one of the guys that can lead us to a World Series. But everything is just telling me that ownership is not going to spend the money. It is what it is. It is being a Cleveland Indians fan. You're going to lose your big guns to bigger markets, and they're going to use that excuse that they can't afford it, which to me is not good enough. If you have the talent, you can find ways to afford that talent. But yeah, everything in me is telling me that they're not going to re-sign him. But I hope this is the one exception that they make in the history of the club.
Yeah, it's definitely agreed. I mean, I definitely with you on that. I mean, it's a once-in-a-generation player. They've let so many go over the years. Now's the time to do it. I mean, why not? He's the face of the franchise, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, who else would you want to invest your future in? He's a young player, and they're going to say that they can trade him for so many different prospects and stuff, but I'd rather have someone that can help me win now than 5 years from now.
Again, we're visiting with sports journalist Jake Furr from the Mansfield News Journal. Jake, you up for a little rapid fire as we start to put a close on this podcast?
Let's do it.
All right. And I know you cover so many schools and you're not disrespecting any, but I have to ask, favorite high school stadium to cover a game and why?
As far as stadium-wise, outdoors has to be Arlen Field. There's just so much history. That place is just it's incredible to me. When I walk into that field, it's an amazing sight. But StarTech Stadium over at Madison is very, very beautiful too. So, that's a kind of a 1 and 2 if I'm allowed to do that.
Okay.
Favorite high school gym to cover?
You know what? I actually really enjoyed the Cub Cave over at Lucas. It's a Cracker Jack box, but man, there's no better atmosphere. You have all the fans on one side, you have the students on the stage behind you. They desperately need a new gym, but man, I just love that atmosphere. And then also Lexington. Going to games with my dad before I was in high school. like the tournament, that's where we always went for the boys sectional basketball tournament. Then we always went to the News Journal Classic game. So that gym has some very fond memories in it. And unfortunately, when they build a new school, they're gonna tear it down and have a new gym. So I hope it has some of the same character.
So I'm going to go a little throwback here, throw you a little bit of a curveball. But going back to high school days, favorite gym to play basketball in, opposing gym, not yours at Plymouth.
Oh, opposing gym. Man, I didn't play very well at opposing gyms. Um, one place that I really remember playing at was the old Crestline gym. Um,
Okay.
I actually enjoyed that atmosphere. You're running out from the tunnel underneath the basket, underneath the one side of the basket, and it just kind of opens up to almost like a big bowl. And it was actually really cool. It was a really fun environment. It's kind of I think it's one of the first places I got my first start as a sophomore in. I had some pretty decent games there.
Which school has the best popcorn?
Popcorn, man. Joe Roberts is going to kill me if I don't say Lexington.
I knew you would go there.
He will absolutely kill me if I don't say Lexington, but he's been trying to get me to come down to Cincinnati ever since he moved down there to kind of treat me to some popcorn. So, but Ontario, man, Ontario is right up there. They have some good stuff. Doug Basham always comes around with the bag, or Eric Grover says, "Hey, go get this guy some popcorn." They try to take care of me, which is awesome. I love that.
So we've been a couple months where we can't go out and eat, or we have to do takeout or whatever. So, you've missed a lot on opportunities to take you and your wife out and go to different places. But if there was only one restaurant left on the face of the earth for Jake Furr, what would it be?
I don't know if you guys ever had it, but Leaning Tower of Pizza down here in Mansfield.
No, I've not had it.
Man, they have the best pizza and the best subs. A few years ago, me and my wife went on like a little journey over the summer to find the best pizza, and nobody has touched Leaning Tower right now. It's one of the best places that I've ever had. So if I had to choose just one place to eat for the rest of my life, that would be it.
I've heard Deschner's. Is that comparable?
Deschner's, I've only had that a couple times. I know they like to load up the toppings on the pizza. So, I've only had it a couple times, and it is pretty good. But I can't go with anything but Leaning Tower.
Nice. I guess I'll have to try that out.
Sure.
So you've had a lot of time. Obviously, you said you've read some books over these past couple months. What are you binge watching right now?
There's this new show on Apple TV. It's called Defending Jacob. It's about a kid who gets murdered, but his classmate is kind of under investigation for it. So it's really good. And then we just finished Ozark, which was one of my favorite shows that I've seen. I gave it a chance a couple years ago. We watched the first episode, and for some reason it didn't catch my attention. But when I watched it again, man, that's a good show to watch there.
Jake, our time's just about up, but I have one more question for you real quick. If you could be, and you're a super sports fan, if there was only one ticket that you could go to a final game or one particular game where you knew your team was going to win, what would that be? What game would it be?
Man, I would have to go with a Cleveland Browns Super Bowl. I'm a huge Browns fan. I would love to see the Indians win it, but I was at the Thursday night game when Myles Garrett used his helmet as a weapon. But before that whole thing, man, there was no environment that I've ever seen that was like that. It was a Thursday night, and the place was just packed. Everything. It was one of the coolest environments that I've ever been in. So definitely a Cleveland Browns Super Bowl. I would hope it would be kind of closer to Ohio, so that there would be a lot of Browns fans there. But man, that would be something special to witness.
Very good. Well, Jake, I certainly appreciate the interaction today. Anybody you want to shout out tonight?
Thanks to my wife for actually letting me be a sports journalist. It's not easy, on loved ones. This is a job that takes a lot of time, and it's a lot of nights, and she doesn't really like it, but she doesn't complain. So it's amazing of her to kind of let me do what I've always dreamed to do. So I really appreciate that.
I will tell you, fans viewing this, if you're not following Jake Furr on Twitter, you need to, because he has all kinds of great information. You can follow him at JakeFurr11. And I also want to let you know, Jared and I have our own Twitter account now for this podcast. It's Overtime Podcast, just like it sounds, except you drop the T at the end and add the letter or add the number 2, Overtime Podcasts 2. We'd love to have you as a follow. Jared, anything else to wrap things up?
No, thanks, Jake, for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you in the fall. And maybe by then we can also have you on again and maybe be talking fall sports by then.
I'd love to, Phyllis. I'd love to.
Again, Jake, appreciate your time. You do great work at the News Journal. Keep it up. You're bringing a lot of quality information about the athletes in our area, and we certainly appreciate that. And again, those that are viewing, anybody out there, I don't care where you're from, doesn't necessarily have to be North Central Ohio. Reach out to us on our Twitter page. We'd love to have you on and discuss that opportunity. I want to remind you that the comments and views expressed in this podcast series are those of Mike Sparks, Jared Moore, and our guest. This podcast is not associated in any way with WBCO and WQEL Radio. Jared, anything to wrap up episode 5 here?
Nope. Taco Tuesday is coming up here in a few minutes.
Attaboy.
I can hear the wife and kids out there enjoying it, so we'll be getting Taco Tuesday here in a little bit.
Sounds great. Jake, any last parting words, man?
Nope, I think that covers it, but I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on and letting me spread some messages. And you guys keep up the good work, too. This is a fun watch. I enjoy different things in the media, so I appreciate you guys.
Very good. Thank you very much. That'll put a wrap to episode 5 of the Overtime Podcast with Sparksy and Jared. We'll be giving you details very soon on our next guest. With that, I'll close it. As always, a spirit with a vision is a dream with a mission. Have a good night, everybody.